Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me for another Westworld review. Today I will be reviewing Season 1, Episode 4, Dissonance Theory. And I have to say that this, in my opinion, was the first truly great episode of the show. That's pretty much taken care of all my past complaints. I thought all the characters were interesting, all the scenes were very interesting, the episode had a nice balance, and everything just flowed well. I have no real complaints. So, one of the things going on in this episode that's significant is we have a very troubled Maeve because she's basically having flashbacks of being shot and killed, which doesn't really make sense since she's alive and well in the present scenario. These flashbacks were once again well done and very disturbing. I have no real complaints as they leave an impact on the viewer. Then we did have a discussion between Hughes, Teresa, and Bernard about what happened with the host that basically did itself in the last episode, and Hughes is not happy about the way this is being handled. She feels like there's a lot of secrets that aren't being let out and that she can't reveal anything. I'm sure this will be significant in the future. I thought this scene was fine. Another prominent storyline in this episode deals with Dolores, who's also very troubled and struggling with her identity, which kind of parallels William, who's also struggling with his, and he and Logan definitely have very different views of the world they're in which will be significant later in the episode. William really does like Dolores, and he invites her on the bounty quest they are going on. And I think these two characters have a sincere relationship that works for me, and I was very pleased with these scenes overall. Probably the most prominent storyline in this episode was the Man in Black, played by Ed Harris, who was sadly mostly absent last week. Ed Harris is great in this role, and he really has some of the best dialogue in the show as well, which is kind of sinister and dark and also funny at the same time, partly because of how well Ed Harris delivers it. He makes an interesting relationship in this episode with the character Armistice, a lady we haven't really seen much of since the first week, I believe. Surprisingly, the Man in Black kind of likes her. He doesn't shoot her or kill her off, so that's something. He basically wants info from her on some kind of interesting tattoo she has. She thinks it gives him a clue to his maze. So he makes a deal with her and agrees to break one of her men out of jail. A man named Hector, who will be significant later in the episode. And he takes Lawrence along with him as bait, which I thought was kind of humorous. But he does save Lawrence in the end. So I guess it was an okay move by the Man in Black from an ethical standpoint for a change. So when he basically eventually breaks Hector out in a pretty good scene, Armistice tells him a story. She says her whole town was basically killed and she was the only survivor by faking that she was dead, and that she basically hunts down all the men that killed her family in her town by painting their blood on her skin, and there's only one man left she has to catch, which would be the head of a snake, I think it is, which is her tattoo. And we find out that the man's name is Wyatt, and we've heard that name before. Um, I'll just leave it at that. Doesn't seem like Wyatt's that great of a person either, but this is an important clue for the Man in Black. I thought all these scenes were very, very interesting and very good acting all the way around. Another significant thing that happened, there was a lot that happened in this episode, was Teresa goes to have a chat with Dr. Ford. She's concerned about his new project because she feels like he's disrupting things, which I think might be his intention. I'm still not really sure about Dr. Ford yet and his true intentions, but Anthony Hopkins is doing a great job. You can tell why he's a great actor. He basically warns Teresa not to interfere with him, and he's just so menacing in this scene without really having to overdo it in any way. It's basically just the looks he gives her and the tone in his voice. But surprisingly, Teresa still doesn't seem like she really wants to back off that much. But it turns out it looks like things are out of her hands, and we learn that the doctor's project is closer to being done, and I have to say I'm very interested to see what this project is. So then we go back to the William Logan bounty quest scenes, and this is significant because Logan basically takes pleasure in killing all the hosts that are there, but you can tell that William is still conflicted about it. And basically, when Logan double crosses the host that they're helping, William basically gets very, very upset about it. And they definitely have very different worldviews on how they should act while they're playing what Logan calls a game, but William seems to think you should still act like you would outside of the game. I'm sure these different viewpoints will come into play as the show progresses. Another scene I thought was very well done. But this episode also ends interesting. We basically have a shootout, which basically leads to Maeve questioning Hector about her visions based on a picture that she has. And in the conclusion, she basically cuts herself to see what will happen. And I'll just leave it at she seems to figure out a lot of things. And I think we're getting closer to some big fireworks happening on the show. This was also intercut with some scenes of Armistice once again being killed, and I thought this was an excellent ending and very well done. Overall, I thought Dissonance Theory was the best episode of the show. I don't think it was quite up to a 5-star level yet, as I don't feel we had any huge big event yet, but Dissonance Theory was definitely really good, and I give it a 4.5 out of 5. Definitely an episode I recommend, and I'm now really looking forward to what happens in the future on the show. So that's it for my review of this episode, Dissonance Theory, and as always, thanks for watching.